Guys, I'm here on my deck. It's a beautiful day today. Looks like it's gonna rain. Looks like a jungle out here. I love it. It's so shady though that my flowers aren't blooming much. I have a couple Gerber daisies up there. They don't have one flower. My begonias have like hardly anything, but it's still nice and pleasant out here. But my orchid is going to bloom again, which is really cool. So this is the only one I have outside. I have about 7 orchids, and this one had some mealy bugs. Sorry about the loud truck. This one had some mealy bugs, so I had to spray it, and it's been out here a while, so it likes it out here because it's starting to bloom again. So, and then up here I had planted some impatiens, but one little flower, and this is all mint, so it helps keep the mosquitoes away. And same here, this one has like 4 flowers and more mint. It's all different kinds of mint. And then I have this one over here, but the flowers, not doing so well. But anyway, it's nice out here and I enjoy it out here. Some of my flowers out here have actually bloomed. It gets a little bit more light here, but I don't know what in the heck happened to my lilacs this year. That just dried up, so I'll give it some time in the spring, see if it comes back. If not, then I'm going to do something else. So, and then I have this little area over here, which I really haven't done anything with, but those flowers are blooming. And there's a really cute flower right there. And here is some doggy destruction. Every now and then they just knock everything over, but that's what happens when you have dogs. So I have to fix that, and there's a couple flowers over there. Oops. Bandit is having his constitution there. So that's what's happening in my garden. I have to get out here and spray. Something is eating my herbs. I don't know. So I have to get out here and spray, do some maintenance here. This one is doing much better. Here's a celery I planted from just the cut off end of celery I bought. And here is my little urban garden. Some of the things are doing okay. For some reason, everything I plant that's green gets eaten, like lettuce or kale or spinach, anything like that gets eaten. But the beans are doing okay, and my tomatoes, they're doing okay. They're just now starting to ripen. And over here, these flowers are doing great. And my peach tree is still has the peaches on it. And my other tomatoes are just starting to get some blooms on them. I'm going to start those earlier next year, but I think these will produce some tomatoes, and those are actually the ones that I started from the slice of tomato. So the week I was gone, those really shot up and grew. And then here I have, that's doing okay, but all this gets way more sun. And I think my garden I'm either going to have to give it up or I have to move it over again. So you can see how shady this is here, and I thought it was going to get more sun than what it does. So next year I am definitely going to move it over here, and I think I will have better luck then, because this does get sun a good part of the day. So that's my little journey through the garden this morning, and I'm going to go over a few things when I get in the house. My indoor garden is looking good, and here's that little fountain I bought. So I like to keep that going. It's not real loud, but just enough. And the rest of my plants, my crown of thorns right there, it's been kind of dying for a while, which makes me really sad because my kids bought me that probably a good 20 years ago, but it's not dead. It still has a few leaves. I cut it off every now and then, but of course this is my mega plant here, and that just keeps on going. This is my little granddaughter. She came over for a visit.
Huh?
Say hi, Haley.
Hi.
And then I still haven't done anything with my couch, but I do have a plan now, so stay tuned for that in another upcoming video. I have all the stuff I need over here. I know it looks like a mess, but this is all the stuff I need to recover the couch. So I need to get all that stuff off of there and onto the couch and get going on that. I'm happy to say my hummingbirds have been feeding at the feeder. They seem to like this one better than this one, but I put those flowers there from the Dollar Tree. So I stick those on there as a lure, and once a week I usually fill these up and they finish them up. So these are a couple of new nail polishes I bought. I haven't tried this yet, but I like the color. The one I have on now is this one over here, and I get these at Dollar General, and they're like $3. But the thing I like about these is they have that really wide brush, so it's much easier to apply. So this is like my favorite summer shade now, and it is called, let's see, doesn't really have a name on it. It's 8J03. I guess that's the number it has on it. So, but I want to try a little bit different shade. This is going to be nice for summer because it's a nice bright pink. Sherbet Day. It's Sherbet Day. So I'm going to try that one, and that's a gel. And what I do with this one, this actually lasts quite a while when you put it on. And I'll put it on like in the evening, let that dry, and then the next morning I'll put a second coat on, and then I put a clear gel coat over it. And my manicure lasts almost 2 weeks with that. So this polish I really like, and it's Wet n Wild Mega Last. So I recommend that. And these I'm not too sure of yet because I just got these, but I like the shades a little bit different. So I have those. And now I'm going to switch over to my other camera because I want to talk a little bit about pantry staples. Hi, I'm back. Okay, one of my subscribers had asked me if I could do like a basic video on some of the pantry staples that I have for vegan and vegetarian cooking. So I'm going to go ahead and tell you some of the things that I always have in my pantry, and I can pretty much throw together any recipe with these ingredients. Now I wrote them down so I don't forget anything. Okay, first of all, you want to have a good stash of nuts. And the nuts I like to keep on hand are walnuts, cashews, and almonds. And I use those for all kinds of things, from making vegetarian meats to making vegan sour cream, cheeses, all kinds of things. They're very versatile. Now the cashews, that I keep on hand are raw. I really haven't tried using the roasted ones, but you know, if that's all you have, you could probably use that too. So I always have those on hand. You can also make dressings out of those, especially the cashews, because the cashews make a very, very nice sour cream, um, makes a very nice ranch dressing. It depends on how thick you make it. It makes a nice cream cheese type dish. So I always have those on hand. Um, I have a recipe for cashew sour cream, and I've made this a couple times and it's really good. So here's the recipe. I don't know if you can see that, but there is the recipe. And it's very easy. You just soak your cashews um, at least 4 hours, and then you throw all this in the blender. I put in 4 tablespoons of aquafaba, which is the liquid from chickpeas. You can make all kinds of things with that. I put in lemon juice and, okay, I can't read it backwards. Oh, salt. That's what it is. And you can put whatever kind of salt you want, Himalayan, regular salt. You can put, if you want like a garlic flavor, you could put garlic salt or onion salt, whatever. And you stick it all in your little blitz blender and just blitz it up till it's really, really creamy. So this is a good recipe that I came up with, and I was very, very happy with the results. I've made it before just with the cashews, but adding the aquafaba really gave it a nice texture. So that's a recipe that you might enjoy if you're trying to get away from dairy. So another thing that I always keep on hand in my pantry is flour, and at least all-purpose, unbleached, all-purpose flour would be the very minimum that I keep. Now I do have some self-rising flour. I don't have any cake flour, but as long as you have, oh, and bread flour, but as long as you have unbleached all-purpose flour, you can also make your own bread flour and cake flour and self-rising flour. And the way you do that is, and I'll show you the ingredients for that. And one is 4 cups of flour, 2 teaspoons of, oh, I can't read it. Let's see. Oh, baking powder and 2 teaspoons of salt. And that will make self-rising flour. Another thing is the cake flour. You take 1 cup of flour, take out 2 tablespoons of the flour and replace it with 2 tablespoons of cornstarch or arrowroot, either one of those things. And the bread flour, and actually I always keep Vital Wheat gluten on hand. I always have that on hand. But I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. It's 1 cup of bread flour to 1 teaspoon of Vital Wheat gluten. So this would not be something that, of course, if you're gluten intolerant, you wouldn't want to use this flour anyway. You'd want to go to some of the other flours, oat, almond, coconut. There's a lot of flours out there that are gluten-free. But this isn't about that. So this is what I keep in my pantry. So if you run out of any of those flours and you have all-purpose flour, you can go ahead and make your own. So another thing I always keep on hand, like I said, is Vital Wheat gluten. And I use those in making vegan meats. Um, so that's a really handy thing to keep on hand. And I have some recipes posted where I have made some vegan meats. So, and I have all my recipes in a playlist. If you have any interest in viewing that, I will put a card up here and you can check that out. So another thing I keep on hand, of course, is cornstarch or arrowroot powder. I keep rice flour on hand, which is also something that you can use if you're gluten-free. Now, I tried being gluten-free for about 3 months because, well, if you've watched my channel for any amount of time, you know I have GI issues. But for me, it really didn't make a difference, so I stopped being gluten-free and just went back to regular eating. So, but I always keep the Vital Wheat gluten on hand, and I use that all the time in combination with other things like nuts or oats or any of that, depending on what I'm trying to make. And that's a good thing to have in your pantry. Another thing I always keep on hand is different kinds of oatmeal. I have oat flour, I have quick cooking oats, and I have old-fashioned oats, and I also have steel cut oats. And depending on what I'm making, that's what I use. So I always have oatmeal on hand. So oatmeal doesn't have to be sweet. It doesn't have to be a breakfast staple. You can use oatmeal for all kinds of things, and it gives the vegan meats a nice texture and chew. And you can combine that with nuts, ground up nuts, or anything. And you can even grind up the oatmeal and make that into a cream cheese. I have some recipes on that. If anybody's interested, I can post something about that. Another thing I always have on hand is mushrooms, and whether they're fresh mushrooms or if I dry them myself. And I do have another video on that, and I'll post a card there about how to dry the mushrooms in your refrigerator. So once the mushrooms are dry, I make those into a mushroom powder, which gives my meats an umami taste. And umami is the taste that you taste in meats. So I always keep that on hand, and rather than buying the expensive pre-ground mushroom powder, I just make my own. Whenever I have too many mushrooms or I feel they're going bad, I dehydrate them, and when they're dry, I put them in my little bullet, and it makes a nice powder. You can add it to soups, lots of things. I add it to my vegan meats all the time. So that's something I always have on hand. Another thing I always have on hand is TVP, which is textured vegetable protein, and that is a soy product. So I always keep that on hand, and it comes in different sizes. You can get it like ground beef texture where it's very small, or you can get it in chunks. Sometimes you can even get it pre-flavored on Amazon. I've gotten it there before too. And sometimes I add it with the Vital Wheat gluten and the oatmeal and the nuts and all my seasonings, and I make vegan meat out of that. So that I always have different sizes on hand, and that works out real well. Another thing I always have on hand are chickpeas, because as I said, you can make that into cook it and save the liquid. Always save the liquid. Now, it doesn't last a real long time in the refrigerator, but you can freeze it, and you can make all kinds of things out of the aquafaba, which is the liquid from the chickpeas. You can whip it up into a whipped cream and put sugar in there, or like I said, I put it in my sour cream, or you can put it in dressings, or you can save it and put it in soups. It's very versatile, and it's something that when you cook beans, you might want to keep. And speaking of beans, I always have a variety of beans on hand. I pick them up at the Dollar Tree, I pick them up at Walmart, wherever I see um, beans. So I always have containers of those on hand because it's a great source of protein. Another thing I always keep on hand is some tofu. Now I usually get the firm because you can make a lot of things out of that. You can use it to make vegan yogurts. You can use it to make vegan bacon. You can use it to make more meats combined with other things, or you can marinate it and eat it on its own. And I know some people don't like tofu, but you know, depending on the seasonings you put in it, it can be very tasty. You can make a scrambled egg substitute with it, depending on what ingredients you add. So that's another alternative and something I always keep on hand. Um, Now there's a kind that you can get, and I think you can get it on Amazon. I've gotten it there before. It's a silken tofu that actually comes packaged and it's shelf stable and you don't have to refrigerate it. So I think it's Mori New or Nori New, I forget. But anyway, you can look it up and get it on Amazon, and it comes like in a box with maybe a dozen, you know, little packages of it. But that's also nice to keep on hand if you want a creamy something. You know, the firm tofu, uh, that's used more for other things and eating. So that I always keep on hand. Another thing I always keep on hand because I like to make my own vegan yogurts, and I also have a video on that, and I'll put a card, a link to that in case you're interested in that. And so I always keep probiotic capsules on hand just for that. Now these probiotic capsules I don't take daily. I use these for making fermented yogurts and cheeses and things like that. So, but these worked real well, and it's by Now, and this is the brand that I found that I like the best. I've tried other ones and they weren't as effective, but these really work well. So, and I got these on Amazon. So check those out if you're interested in doing any of those things. So if you have a pantry that's stocked with most of these things, you can pretty much make anything from soup to nuts to meats to dairy-free products. Those are pretty much the very basic things. Oh, and I forgot one important one. Vital wheat gluten. No, nutritional yeast. I already said the vital wheat gluten. Nutritional yeast is another thing that you want to keep on hand because it's great for cheeses. It adds B vitamins for people that don't eat meat. So that is very important to keep as a staple in your pantry. And actually, I buy mine in bulk because it's cheaper that way. I get mine at Earth Fare in one of the stores here. I'm not sure if you where else you could get it in bulk, but here where I live, that's where I buy my nutritional yeast. So those are pretty much the staple products. I mean, there's so many other products that you can keep on hand depending on what you want to make. But one other thing I wanted to talk about before I go, and I found this cookbook on Amazon too, and it's by Leah Lenneman. And since I'm a single person, and it seems like when I get a recipe, of course, it's always for at least 4 people, so I have to do the math and, But this one, I really am impressed with this book, and I like to just read my cookbooks and go over them when I first get it. I haven't made anything out of this cookbook yet, but I can pretty much tell by the ingredients if I'm going to like it or not. I've had enough experience with cooking that I can pretty much tell. But I mean, I marked all these recipes that I want to try. And this is vegan cooking for one. So I think that's awesome. And all the recipes, it doesn't have real crazy ingredients. I mean, it's got, the staples in it that I just talked about. Um, the spices in here aren't real weird. Um, and they don't have 20 different ingredients for each recipe. So this is a book, if you're just trying to go more plant-based or if you're interested in doing vegan, I highly recommend this book because it's got some really good recipes in it. So anyway, that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about today. I'm going to get my bread machine out, and I haven't tried this recipe, but it sounds really good. And since I've been making my own bread, um, it goes pretty quick. And so I want to try this rosemary bread recipe. And this cookbook came with my uh, Cuisinart bread machine, and I love that bread machine. I would highly recommend that too. I've had it for a lot of years. I've used it off and on. You go through cycles, at least I do, where I use things, then I put them away. I don't use them for years. And then you think, oh, should I sell it in a garage sale? But you hang on to it. Well, that's the affair I've had with my bread machine. But since I've started using it again, I really, really like the bread that it produces. Um, my sourdough starter, this does not make me happy. My sourdough starter went bad. Um, for some reason, I don't know why, but I mean, these things happen sometimes. But I do have a little bit that I saved in the refrigerator that I have not used that I'm hoping to revive because I haven't fed it in a long time. So I want to see if that will help. And then also my kombucha, I let that go a little too long, which my bad. But I had a rotten onion that I discovered when I got back from vacation. So guess what? I have fruit flies all over the place. So what I did was I made little fruit fly traps. Say that fast 10 times, and I'll show you what I did. And they're in there, I took a little solo cup, and I actually had a little bit of white wine left that's been in the refrigerator. It's probably still okay for cooking, but I don't think I'd want to drink it. I put a little bit of that in and a little bit of apple cider vinegar. I put plastic, just saran wrap on the top, put a rubber band on, and took it and poked holes in it so that they can get in, but they're not the brightest, so they just kind of go around the rim and around the rim. And so don't poke the holes around the rim, keep them more in the middle. But I put these out yesterday, and I mean, I had fruit flies all over. So since I've done this, I see a few here and there. So this really works. Oh, and then I put uh, a few drops of dish detergent in here because what that does, it changes the surface tension of the liquid, and they land on it, and rather than sitting on top of it, they just kind of fall to the bottom and sayonara, that's the end of them. So, I mean, I hate to really do that. It kind of makes me feel bad, but makes me feel worse that I can't ferment anything right now because I have this fruit fly problem. So anyway, if you have fruit flies, give this a try. It does work. It may take a couple days for them to all disappear, but like I said, they're almost all gone. And I made a couple of these um, so that they had their choice of where they want to go. So let me put this back. And anyway, so I'm not going to ferment my sourdough bread until I know all the fruit flies are gone. And I do still have some scobies from my SCOBY hotel, so I'll make a fresh batch of the kombucha. Again, I want to wait until the fruit flies are gone, but I have no idea how they got into my kombucha because I have a tea towel that I doubled and put on there, so it wasn't like it had big holes or anything in it. And then I put it on there with a tight rubber band, so I have no idea how those little buggers got in there. But anyway, I'm going to make a fresh batch of that as well as soon as I get rid of these fruit flies, and business as usual. So in the meantime, when I make bread now, I'm going to make a loaf that is not fermented. So I thought I would try this recipe for rosemary bread, and I will let you know how it tastes after I make it. But it sounds really easy and really good, and it's probably something you could make by hand too if you had the inkling. So, and there's also a recipe that sounds really good that is for, I want to try this one too. And if you make your own pesto and you have a lot of pesto left over, this would be a great recipe for that. It's for pesto bread. And the thing I like about this bread machine, you can pick a small, medium, or a large loaf. And like I said, this cookbook came with my bread machine, and it really has some nice recipes in it. It even has gluten-free and all sorts of gluten-free recipes. It's a really great cookbook. So anyway, I think I blabbed enough here. But anyway, actually the subscriber that asked me for to post this video, her name is Susan, and she has the channel Susan's Vintage Life and More. A beautiful lady that I really enjoy her videos. So she does a lot of makeup reviews, and she has a lot of vintage jewelry that she got from her aunts and mother and grandmother. So if you enjoy that sort of thing, give Susan's channel a look. And that's about all I have today. So anyway, if you like my content, I post a lot of different videos about my lifestyle. I'm on a fixed income, and it's not that much, but I still feel like I have a very abundant life. Sometimes you have to use a little bit of imagination, but almost everything that I want, I figure out a way to get it. It may not be exactly the same thing, but I shop around until I find it, or I find something similar and DIY it. But I never feel deprived. I always feel blessed with abundance, and you can too. Sometimes all it takes is a paradigm shift and thinking of things a little different. You don't want to get the poor man's mindset. You always want to attract abundance into your life, and I really truly believe you attract what you think. So anyway, that's all I have for today. If you think you might like my content, please consider subscribing. For my friends that visit me often, I appreciate you and thank you for coming back. And for my new subscribers, welcome to my channel. My name is Ellen, and I really think I have an abundant life on less. So I'm wishing you abundant blessings, and I love each and every one of you. And come and see me again. Come visit again. Leave me comments. I love interacting with my subscribers, and I try to answer every single comment you leave me. So I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.